Welcome, everyone. This is Ken from Keystroke. Today, we're going to be doing a webinar on Act4mail. Thank you for joining us. We're pretty excited about all the recent changes we've made to Act4mail. Not only is it a lot of customer requested features, but also, as many of you know, we've added Act4mail as a free Orange Care benefit. So we've had a lot of people attend today looking to see what's involved with the new features of this program. And our support manager, Michael Cadlib, will be running the presentation today. So without further ado, Lubs, take it away.
Thanks, Ken. So let's just a little brief outline of what Act4mail is, because people in our clients have used both Act4mail and Act4Outlook. So I just want to sort of go over the differences between the two real quickly for those who have either used both, or if you've been to our website or seen our newsletter and are wondering, hey, what are these two products? Okay, so they're both almost identical as far as their features. The main difference between the two is going to be Act4Outlook is made for the desktop users. So anybody who uses the desktop version of Act and either has the local database on their computer, or maybe they're logged into a server database in a shared network, Act4Outlook is going to be made for that. For those people who are web only, whether it be a self-hosted Act4Web, or through Act or another hosting provider, Act4mail is going to be the product you're going to use for that instead. Okay, so that's going to be the main difference between the two products. As far as what they do, they're almost identical between the two. Okay, there's just a couple things different, but outside of that, they're pretty identical. So once again, today's session is going to be on Act4mail. So let's go ahead and get right into it. One quick caveat with the Act4mail: if anybody's used it in the past, we've changed one thing where there used to be two ways to get into Act4mail. There was the Act4mail that was inside of Outlook, where you would create activities, create contacts from emails, and then there was also the part where you did the mail merge, which was outside of Outlook. That was a standalone product. Okay. Now we've sort of brought it all in-house to within Outlook. So you do this, what you used to do in Act4mail, which is creating contacts, creating activities, replying and sending emails, and those get recorded to histories. And then also any of the merging of emails, doing 50, 100, 1,000, whatever emails merging you want to do, right? That's all controlled right within your Outlook configuration. Okay, and I'm sure we might have this question later, but just to let people know, it does need to be the desktop version of Outlook, so you can't have the web version of Outlook. It will not integrate with that. It does need to be the desktop version of Outlook. Okay, so let's get into things and get into your settings and how to set it up and all the different features that are in Act4mail. So once it's installed, you're going to see an Act4mail menu in your Outlook setup. And when we go to that Act4mail menu, we're going to see all these different options here. The merge to and manage templates, we'll get that to in the later part of today's session. That's where you do the merging of the emails. Okay. To set things up, the first thing you probably want to do is click on Act4mail settings. That's where you tell it, what database to use, the login, the API settings, and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and click that. Okay, so the connection settings, you need to know a couple things. The web API URL, and what we've done down here is supply all the different URLs if you're using Act as your hosting provider. All you need to do is click on that link, automatically puts in your URL right up top there. Okay, so if you're hosting with APC, click on the link per your location, and it's going to put that URL in there. If you are self-hosted or hosted with a different provider, you'll need to find out their API URL from them, and then put that into that particular file right there. I'm sorry, that field right there. Okay. The Act database name. So that's something you'll need to know to put in there. Now, if you are an APC user, the easiest way to find that, when you're logged into APC in your browser, if you go in the upper right here, you'll see a little question mark icon next to your login name. If you click that, it's going to open a menu. One of the options at the bottom there is About Act. You'll click that. It's going to give you the About Act screen, and it's going to tell you the database name. And the nice thing is here, they've actually made it clickable, so it copies actually. You don't even need to highlight it and right click. You just click it, and it copies it to the keyboard. And then you can go ahead and paste it back into your database name on your settings. And then your username is going to be your email, and then your Act password. So whatever your Act password is, you put that in, hit login, and it's going to let you know if everything is correct. Okay. If it's not, maybe you put a typo in the URL or the database name or username and or password, you'll get a message indicating that you can't log in for whatever reason. So you'll need to fix that. So we go ahead and click OK. Next we have history recording, and this is going to allow you to choose your preference as far as how do you want the history to be recorded once you send an email. Okay, so you have 5 options here, from subject only all the way to attach when there only is an attachment. I think the most common one might be the subject and body, or subject, body, and attachment. Those are probably the 2 that people probably utilize the most. So that when they send an email and they send it, this is what's going to record for them into the history of the ACT record. They have a couple other options here. If you want emails to other database users to be attached to their records, you would check that box. More often than not, this is unchecked because most of those emails are inter-office emails, and those really don't need to be recorded in an ACT because it just clutters up the history. But if for either one of those compliance reasons or for whatever reasons at all, if you do need to have those recorded, you would just check that box. But by default, it's unchecked. Make histories private. Similar here, most of the time it's probably going to be unchecked. But if you don't want your email seen by other users of the database, you can check that, and then you are the only one that sees those emails when on the history tab. The third one there, that's usually one that could be checked. I think just depends on everybody's situation. Attaching all sent messages, even if they're not sent from this machine. So what does that mean exactly? Let's say you have an iPad or an iPhone or whatever mobile device you use, and you're often emailing, in the evenings or on weekends or, when you're out of the office. Well, if you want those messages to be recorded back to ACT, you'd want to have that checked then. So basically it means, let's say you go home at night and you send, 5 emails throughout the course of the evening on your mobile device. Next day you come into your office, you open up your Outlook. If you have that checked, Act4mail is going to check your sent folder and look for any emails that you've sent since the last time it was open, and then record those as history accordingly. Okay. The next 2 there are history linking options. So if you want to link the recorded emails to either linked companies and or linked opportunities, only ones that are open. So if it's inactive and or closed, it won't link it there, so it's only going to link it to open opportunities. And then lastly, in the excluded accounts, if you would have more than one email account in your Outlook, I only have one in here, that's why you only see one. But if you have more than one, they'll be listed here. So maybe if you have your personal email and maybe you have 2 or 3 other business accounts, they'll be listed here. But maybe one of the business accounts or your personal email account, you don't want that to be recorded when sending email from that account. You would just check the appropriate box next to that email address. And then whenever you send an email from, let's say, your personal account, it doesn't get recorded. Even if that record is an ACT, it's not going to record it. Okay. So that's history recording. Next, we have incoming messages, and this is for if you want any of those emails that you get in your inbox, if you want those to be recorded automatically to the history. Okay. Now, we have this here with the word of caution. It's unchecked by default. Now, if you're the type of person that's replying to 80% or more of your emails, you probably don't want to have this checked, because if you have this checked, that incoming email is going to get recorded, and then when you reply to them, that gets recorded. So now, you have 2 emails recorded that are basically the same thing, so to speak. So this is good for people who maybe get a lot of inbound emails, but may not reply to them for whatever reason because of the way their business is set up. Okay, so just be aware of that. If you want to check that, think about that before you start using that. Okay. If you do use that, though, you do have the ability to sort of ignore certain domains. If you don't want things, maybe you have in your company you have 50 employees, but only 10 of them use ACT. But any of the emails among other employees you don't want to have recorded. So whatever your domain is at your company, you'd put it in there, and then any sort of inter-office emails would not get recorded. The last tab here is the mail merge tab. So this sort of controls when we do the mail merge, we choose a default template folder. Okay. So that would be, I just put mine in C temp, but it could be whatever you want it to be. Even if you're in a shared network environment, and let's say you have 10 users using the same Act4mail website database, you can just put a folder up on the network that's shared, and then you guys can all share the different templates that you guys use. Or if you want just to use your own, you just put it on your C drive somewhere and then go from there. Okay. Below there is a contact exclusion field, so you can have it created for you, or if you already have one in your database, you just choose it from the drop down, and then you choose the value that's going to be in that field, so that even if you were to have a contact that's in a group that you're merging to email, if they have that value in that field, they're not going to get that email. Okay, almost like an opt-out, so to speak. So that's the tabs here for the Act4mail settings. Under the About thing, one thing that's important. One thing we'll tell you about Act, we'll give you the version, okay, so in case you ever need to know what version you're on. But there's also a nice option there, View Logs, okay? So if you are a client of this product, if you use this product, and for some reason, something's just not working properly, what we would ask you to do is, hey, send us your most recent log file, because that's going to tell us sort of what's happened in Act4mail, why a particular thing is not working. So you would click the View Logs. It's going to open up your log folder. You click the most recent log, and then just email that text file to us. Okay, it's very simple to do, and then that allows us to sort of resolve that, whatever that issue might be. So, all right, so that's the settings here for Act4mail. Once again, that's where the first place you want to go once you install the product. Get in there, set up your database, set up your preferences, and then go ahead and save and close. Now, anytime you make any changes there, you do need to shut down Outlook and restart it for everything to take effect. Now, I didn't make any changes because I've already set this up prior, so that's why I'm not shutting it down. But in your case, whenever you set this up, especially for the first time, you want to close Outlook, reopen it, and all your changes will have taken effect then, okay? Because what a lot of people end up doing is they install it, they do the setup, they start emailing, nothing's recording because they didn't restart Outlook, okay? So it's very important to do. Okay, so that was Act4mail settings. Next, we have the Act database settings. This is sort of where we control the mapping of the fields, because we could have contacts going back and forth, okay? So on the left is the Outlook field, and then on the right is going to be the Act field that you wanted to merge or sync to. Okay, you can set a field to duplicate check if you want. So if you, like for say maybe email or something else, if you want it to merge, so if it has the same email address, it's going to merge the data together, okay? If you don't want to, you just want to bring in everything, then you don't have to worry about duplicate check. Next is your activity settings tab. This is where you can set your default activity whenever you're creating an activity from Act4mail. There's also an option there to automatically show the create activity window when items are added to the calendar. Now what that means is if you, let's say somebody sends you an invite in your Outlook and you accept it, when you accept it, the Act4mail create activity window will pop up and allow you to create the activity to then go into Act. Now, if you're going to be syncing your calendar with Act4mail, you can leave this unchecked, because anything you accept in Outlook will go to your Outlook calendar, and then that's going to sync to your Act calendar as well. Okay, if you're not syncing the calendar for whatever reason, then you might want to have this checked. So this way, any kind of incoming invites you get in Outlook, they're going to go to your Act calendar as well once you accept them. Okay. History settings for incoming messages. So what type of history do you want it to say in the history tab when it's an incoming message? By default, it's going to be email auto attached, but you can put whatever history type you want. Opportunity settings. This allows you to set your default process, stage, product, quantity, and estimated close date. So when you create an opportunity from an email, these defaults will pop in there, and then you don't have to worry about doing that. It's going to save you a couple mouse clicks whenever you're creating an opportunity from an email. Finally, on this database settings wizard here, we have contact exclusion settings. So it's going to ignore the history recording for contacts if they contain the following value. So maybe ID status equals employee, okay? Or last results equals do not record history, or something like that. So it could be any Act field, and the value could be whatever you want. And then if your contact has that in that particular Act field, that value, they're not going to have any history recording through Act4mail emails. So we're going to go ahead and click Save there. And then let's just show you some of the things before we get to the sync. Let's show you things that that you can do with emails that you get in your inbox. Okay, so here's an email I received, and they're asking for ACT training. So I'm going to go ahead and create the activity from this actual email. And this is what I do all day with my emails that I get in from people. It's very easy. They're asking for whether it be a web meeting or a phone call. I just right click, schedule the activity, and then it goes into my ACT. Very quick and efficient. So it's a right click. And before we get to create activity, let me just go over some of the other options we do have. So we have quick attach email to ACT. Okay. So what that will do is that's going to attach it quickly right to that record in ACT for me. Okay. Send to ACT, or I'm sorry, send email to ACT. If I hit that, that's going to allow me to choose where I want this email to go to, which company, what group, what opportunity, or what contact. Because maybe the email is from Michael Caleb at Gmail, but I want to record this to a different contact. So I would say link to contacts, and then if I wanted to, record it to, let's say, Thomas Andrews and Michael, so now it's going to get recorded to both of theirs, because maybe Thomas is working with Michael in some capacity on his training. So now it's on both their records in their history if I do that. Okay. Back here. Create contact in ACT. So if that person's not in ACT, it'll let me create this contact. If I choose this and the person's already in ACT, it's going to let me know that. So I'm not going to have to be able to create a duplicate. Now that's looking at the email address. So if the person in ACT, if there's already a Michael Cadlib in there, but maybe his email is different, I'm not going to get this message. So it's not based upon the name. It's looking at the email address itself, just so you know that. Okay. And even if it does find one, it's going to say, do you want to still create a new one? More likely, you're probably going to want to hit no and then look up that record and see if it's valid or not. Before we do the create activity, let me just show you the create opportunity option. And as you see here, those are the defaults in there. Okay. The name of the opportunity is pulling it right from the the subject of the email. If you want something different, you can add it there. But oftentimes that's going to be all you need. Okay. As you see, it finds that contact, so it's linked to that person in my, let me just go to that record in my ACT here. Michael Gmail, there he is. Okay, so let's go back to Outlook, and we'll create that. And let you know that it was created successfully. Okay, so let's just go over to ACT, look on the Opportunities tab, and then here's that one we just created today. Okay. All right, let's go back here. Let's now create an activity for that training. So right-click, create activity in ACT. And he requested on the 21st at 2 p.m. So we're going to go ahead and schedule that 21st, 2 p.m. It's going to be 2.5 hours. We can make it timeless. We can make it private. So similar to almost all the ACT, the regular ACT schedule box you have, very similar to all those options. You can switch activity type if you need to do it. Enable alarm, priority, schedule for a different user. Regarding, similar to the opportunity name, the regarding is going to be whatever the subject of that email was. You can change it if you need to. If you want to schedule the meeting in Outlook. So once again, if you're not syncing activities, you may want to do this. Okay, you may want to check that so that it does get scheduled in Outlook. And then it also allows you to then send an invitation to that person as well. So that's an option there as well. And then you could put in your location, where's the training going to happen. Down here, as far as entity links, it's going to say link to. If it finds that person in your database, it's automatically going to put them in there. But then you also have the option to link it to additional options, more contacts, a company, a group, my contact, or if you want to link it to an opportunity. We just created that opportunity, so I'm going to go ahead and link this activity to that opportunity as well. Type in the search, and we'll just do it to both because I forget which one it was, but let's do it to both there. Okay, create. All right, so now if I go to ACT, I'll see that ACT training there for this contact. And if I go to my opportunities, click on the opportunity, I'm also going to see it there on the Opportunities Activity tab. There we go. Okay. So really quickly, in a matter of less than a minute, I've created an activity and I've created an opportunity and linked the activity both to the contact and opportunity for that contact for just from that email that I just got from that person. Okay. So very easily, just to organize my day and my upcoming weeks and trainings, very easily I can do that. Now, for those people who have used Act4Outlook, one of the things that you might notice is missing when you do a right click is go to contact and or look up the domain, everybody with the same domain. That's not in Act4mail, so that's I mentioned before. So there's a couple little differences. That's one of the differences with Act4mail and Act4Outlook. So in Act4Outlook, you can have the go to contact, which takes you right to your desktop version and looks up that contact. With the web version, you don't have that. Unfortunately, there's not an ability to do that, so that's why you don't see it on that right click there. So basically, you have these 5 options with a right click.
Similarly, Michael, if you select multiple emails in Act4Outlook, you can right click and say create lookup, and that's absent from this as well.
Correct. Yep. Okay. So basically, any of the sort of lookup functions are not able to be doable in Act4mail. Okay. So that's the email part of things. And whether you start the email in Act, so if you're here in Act and you go to the contact and send the email, click on the email address here to initiate the email, or if you initiate it in Outlook, they're both going to get recorded. Okay. So if I send it here and I hit the send button, it'll get recorded. Or if I just do a reply or forward or new email from Outlook, it'll get recorded. Now, 2 other buttons that you're going to see up here: send in link, send without attaching. So if I send without attaching, that means I'm just sending a reply to this person, and I don't need it to be recorded back to my Act history. Maybe it's just a hey, okay, or I'll meet you then, or I'll call you then, and I don't need that recorded. I can do send without attaching. If I excuse me, if I do send in link, that's going to allow me to then choose again what I'm linking this to. So we'll just call this training, send in link. And then once again, allows me to choose which entity I want to link that to. So if I want to link that back to that opportunity, so now it's going to link to that contact history and also the opportunity history. Okay, and then I can see it here. There's that email sent. If I go to my opportunities, I will see it on that history as well. Once it pops up here, there we go. There's that email. Okay. So now this is great because now I can look at an opportunity and see all the emails that are relating specifically to that particular opportunity, which is nice. Okay, so I can sort of go see the flow of how that sort of opportunity started from an opportunity then to actually to becoming hopefully a closed sale for everybody. Okay. All right, so the next thing I want to do is talk about syncing contacts and calendars. So let's move on to that. Let's go back to our Outlook. And all that's controlled in the sync settings section of Act4mail. So we're going to click on sync settings. And these first 2 tabs, activity sync and contact sync, are going to be very similar. Okay, this top part here is very similar in both sections. So you're going to have the ability to enable auto sync. So basically, it's going to sync automatically based upon whatever your interval is down here. And you can change the interval from 5 minutes up to 24 hours. There's an option here: do not synchronize updates to activities that have already been synced already. So maybe you just want that activity the first time it gets scheduled, and you're not going to worry about rescheduling things. So you would check that so that nothing gets rescheduled in either one. Oftentimes you probably want to leave that unchecked because you want to have that's the purpose of the sync, is the ability to go both ways and sync changes that might have occurred either in Outlook and or Act. Now you have a sync direction. So there's 3 options here. We have Outlook to Act, so it's going to send Outlook stuff to Act, Act to Outlook, vice versa, or 2-way sync. Okay. Many of you may have known that we really don't support the 2-way sync when it's the built-in sync for Act. But that's why we build it here. So if people really want that two-way sync, and we stand by this, and we've really tested it thoroughly to make sure that it works for everybody here. So two-way sync is definitely a good way to go if you want to have that ability to change things on both sides and then have that sync in both directions, both for context and for activity sync. And then down here for your activity date range, this is where you would select how long past and how long future do you want to sync for. Okay, so you can go back up to a year and as little as a day, and then the same for your future activities. Okay, so that's as far as how much data you want to sync there. So that's the activity sync preferences. Now, one word of caution here, and we have a note here. Anything that's recurring is not going to sync. Okay, so if you have a recurring activity set up in Act, that's not going to sync over to Outlook. You'll have to sort of create those on your own if you want those in Outlook. Okay, to be recurring anyway. So next we have the contact sync here. So once again, up top, similar options: enabling the auto sync, don't synchronize updates, what direction you want to sync, and what interval. Below there's no date range for contacts because that really wouldn't make sense. So what instead we have is a group. You choose a group that you want to sync. All right. So it's not going to sync like based on a lookup, but what you can do is you can create a group based on a lookup. So within your group, you can create a dynamic membership. ID status is customer, and then so anybody who has the word customer in their ID status, they're going to fall into the customer group. That's one example. So, or you can manually create the group. That's up to you. But it's going to list all your groups here, and you choose which group you want to have in there. If you want the entire database, you would just create a group called All Contacts and put all your contacts into that group, and then all your contacts are going to sync. Okay. So I've tested this up to almost 40,000 records as far as contacts to be synced, and it works. So I don't know if there is a max. I don't think there is one, but it's just going to take longer. That initial sync, the more contacts you do have to be involved in the syncing. So just remember that. Okay. So I just have a group in here, Act4mail test sync. So let me just show you that group over here in Act. So I have there's 8 contacts in this group that we're going to sync over into Outlook just for today's purposes. Okay, and then you also have the option down here to clear the last sync date. So that's almost sort of like a redo, so to speak, a start over. If you want to force Act4mail to sync all records again, regardless of the last sync date. So we can clear that and it'll sort of reset things. And then lastly, this one you want to be careful with because this actually clears everything in Outlook, either your entire calendar or all your contacts. Okay, so you want to make sure before you do this, you want to, as you see, there's a warning there. It's reversible. So if you're ever going to do this, you might want to make a backup. But the reason we put this in there is because a lot of times people have stuff in Outlook. It's already in Act as well, and they have additional stuff in Outlook that they don't need anymore, or duplicates in Outlook because they've tried to do other syncs with other products or the built-in product, and it just created a mess. So they just want to get rid of all that stuff. That's why we put this in there, to allow them to just clear everything out and then sort of start from scratch, because they know in Act is all their good stuff, both personal and business contacts and calendar. All that stuff is good in Act, and then once they clear it and then set up the sync, it sends everything good back to Outlook. Okay. But even if you know that, I would still do a backup of everything just as a precaution, because you don't want to get rid of stuff and then after the fact you're like, oh, I deleted all this stuff I shouldn't have deleted. So always back up anytime you're doing a sort of a clear all of anything. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. And once again, if you just set this up for the first time, you want to exit Outlook and then go back in for those settings to take place. And it actually lets you know you must reset Outlook to apply the changes. All right, so let's go ahead and do our sync. Let's do our contacts first. So in Outlook, I just have one contact right now, Joe Outlook. So after the sync, we'll see that contact end up in Act, and we're going to see this one fill up with those contacts that were in that group I just showed you. So we click on the Act4mail menu, sync now, and then you choose which one you want to sync. So let's do contacts. And it's just going to say, are you sure? Do you really want to do this? Yes. You'll see a little status down in the lower right of what's happening. And then once it's finished, it'll let you know sync data successfully. And so now the data is all come in from that group. Okay. And if I go over to my Act database and I look up, I should be able to see Joe Outlook in here. And there he is. Okay. So that was the contact sync that sent, Joe Outlook over to Act, and it sent my Act group over into my Outlook. Let's go back to Outlook.
Lubs, sorry to interrupt, but I've been answering chats here. Did you discuss the difference between the Act Premium Cloud contact sync, other than just a cautionary tale, versus ours? And how
Just
it's
cautionary tale and how the two-way sync wasn't really reliable.
well, and also with APC, the contact sync is a one time, right? It works initially, but it isn't an ongoing update sync. So that's an important distinction for APC users to understand.
Correct. Yep. Good point. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is the calendar. So let's look at our calendar. And so I've created a couple Outlook meetings in here, so on the 23rd and 24th. And if I were to go to my Act, let's look at that calendar. So in here I have a few activities in here. Okay, so now let's go back to Outlook, and we'll do a sync, and we're going to see all those sort of, once again, sync to both places as we did with the contacts. So Act4mail, sync now, calendar. If you really wish to do this, yes. Same thing, you'll see a little status down here in the lower right-hand corner. And then you already see the Act activities coming into Outlook. And if I go over to Outlook, if I go over to Act, and I just need to refresh here. And I don't need to refresh for those activities to come in. I just need to refresh to see them since I'm on the calendar already. So if I wasn't on the calendar and I was somewhere else, once I go to the calendar, I'll see those activities there, just so you know that. And then here's those Outlook meetings that have come over from Outlook. Okay, so once again, two-way sync, pretty quick as you see it there. Especially with the calendar sync is really nice and quick there. So that's what you would do to set up either the contact sync and or the calendar sync. Okay, so that's how you do it manually. You would just hit that sync now button, choose which one you want to sync, and let it go. Once again, if you have the automatic sync set up, you don't have to worry about doing that. Okay, unless you wanted to force something before the automatic sync was to go off. So also be aware too, if you do have the automatic sync and you do have a lot of data, if you had that set up maybe every 5 minutes, it may take up a little bit of your resources because it's going every 5 minutes. So just just a word of caution, depending on how much data you're syncing. If you do the automatic sync, you may not want to have it set at such a low interval. You may want to have it maybe every hour or something, depending on how often you need to have that data in both places. So just something to think about if you set that up that way. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to show you how to use the merge. Okay, so first thing you want to do is create a template. Now I've already created a template, but let me just show you sort of the template editor and how you can open an existing one or create a new one. So you click the Manage Templates button, and that's going to open up our template editor. So if you've used any of our other products, such as whether it be Notifier or Tables for Act, Mail Merge, Mail Manager for Act, the template editor is going to be very similar to that. Okay, so if you use any of those, it's going to be very simple to use for you. So let me just open an existing one that I have here, so you can sort of see that template. So once again, it's going to be in that folder that I've put into my preferences a little bit earlier today when I set that up. Okay, and so you're able to put in merge fields here. Okay, so and those are pulled from this insert merge field list here. You can bring in fields from your contact, my record, or opportunity. So if I go to my contact page, and maybe I want to include the company in here as well. So I have your email. I want to merge their email into this letter. Maybe I'll merge their company's name as well. And all I do is click on that field, hit insert, and it puts it in there. You'll see merge field and then whatever that field name is.
Something Lubs didn't mention that's worth noting is that when you're working in an entirely web environment, like with Act Premium Cloud, you actually cannot merge mail with templates, and that's a current issue based on what's called OAuth or open authentication that is not supported. So this, because we've integrated it right inside of Outlook, doesn't require that. So unlike Act Premium Cloud, you can actually get mail merging functions with templates using Act4mail while still using Act Premium Cloud. So this is a feature we definitely wanted to demonstrate for people looking for that feature, because not all mail merging is marketing, like through marketing automation. This allows you to do standard templates that you might repeat over and over again to small segments. And Lubs will show you, how you can segment those recipients.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're doing any kind of email merging, whether it be like a promotion, a newsletter, um, campaigns, things like that, or just simple emails that you send out, but you send out on a regular basis, so you don't want to type them over and over again. You already have the verbatim for it, and you just need to send it to a different person every time. This is going to be the way to go for you. Okay. And as you see here, just want to demonstrate that you can put an image in there, so you can insert also tables. So if you want to put a table, pictures, and we already talked about that, hyperlinks. So you have a lot of options here as far as what you can build into this template here when creating these templates. Okay. So once I've created it, made my changes, you can do a save as if you want to save it as something else, or just save it. Okay, and I'm going to close my editor. And whenever you close it, just ask you, are you sure? Anything that hasn't been saved since you last saved it will be lost. Yes, I'm good. Okay, so now I'm ready to do that merge. And so this is going to be a little different than for those people who have never worked with Act4mail and have just done the regular Act merging, whether it be desktop or web version. Usually you do your lookup in Act and then merge to that lookup, right? So this is going to be a little different. You choose your template and then you pick your people that you want to send it to. Okay, so you click the Merge To button, and then you have two options. You can merge to Word if you want. It basically creates a Word file, and you can either then send that email to somebody with an attachment or whatever. But more times than not, I think you're going to merge to email, especially if you're using Act4Web. That's probably going to be what you're going to use 99% of the time. So when you do that, it opens up your template folder that you've assigned. It's going to list any of the templates that you've created. The extension is going to be A4 TPL, basically Act4 template is what that stands for. So we're going to go ahead and click the template we have here. Then it's going to open up the wizard for our merge wizard. We have four options to email to. Okay, so let's just go over all four. We have selected contacts. Now, what does that mean exactly? You're going to be allowed to select the contacts you want to send this to. So we have that checked. We click next. It's going to come up with our database list, and then we can just pick and choose who we want to email this to.
Now this is worth pausing on, because earlier Lubs was talking about how one of the differences between Act for Outlook and Act for Mail is the ability to look up contacts. So Act for Outlook can do a lookup based on an inbox item. Act4mail cannot, and that's an API limit. So what we did to kind of get around that is to actually create this little picker where you can select contacts either at random or by query, which Lebs will show you next. But that's why this feature is in here.
Okay, so there's that. I can do that, and I would hit next and then go through the whole wizard. I'm going to skip this part though, because we're going to do something different to actually send the email. But just want to show you this option. Back. We're going to do contacts in a group, but I'm going to skip that because that's what we'll ultimately end up doing. All contacts. So be careful, obviously, with this one. If you have a large database, it's going to send to everybody in your database. So that's an option. And then lastly here, this is something that we just added as well to Act4mail for any of those previous Act4mail users. Contacts based on a query. Okay, so you can actually do a lookup. Okay, but you would obviously do it after you choose your template like we did here. You're not choosing it before, just reversing, that's all. And we hit next. And we'll just create a simple one here. Let's say we wanted to send this to anybody edited in the last week, the last 7 days. Okay, and then the preview how many records we're going to be sending to. It's going to let us know, okay, there's 19 records found in our database that have been edited in the last week, and that's who it's going to send to.
So I was just to pause here for a second. One of the things that we got feedback on is that when you have a lookup of contacts, often those lookups are based on lookups, right? Like they're either looking up on a field or it's an advanced query. So we thought a way of getting around the limit of, not being able to look up through the API is to actually build the query editor right in here. So you can duplicate the lookup that you did in Act inside of this query editor. So it really is handy for kind of getting around some of the limitations of the API. Back to you, Lebs.
Thanks. Okay. So once again, we're going to skip this one now, but that's how you would do if you wanted to do it to a query. Okay. So we're going to actually send it through contacts in a group. So you've created your group in Outlook. I'm sorry, in Act. They're in your group list. We're going to send it to. I've created one called Act4mail Test Merging. So we're going to send it to that group. Let me just show you that group here. I think I have like 4 people in here, or 4 emails. Just for testing.
Lubs, while you're looking this up, I just wanted to mention one of the questions we had is how are these emails being sent out? Is it going through, the Act4mail server or anything? Remember, this is an Outlook plugin. Everything is going out through Outlook. So whatever email accounts you've got configured in Outlook as the default account is going to be the email server that it gets sent out. This is a client-side email delivery system. So don't assume that like AMA that there's anything server-side. This is being sent out locally. So whatever you've got configured locally will be for the delivery server.
Great point. And just to follow up on that, so a lot of times people are going to have limits on their emails that they can send out at a certain amount of time, 50, 100, whatever it may be, and you can get blocked if you send more than that. So we have things, we're going to show you a couple things moving forward here where you can sort of, get around that so that you're not getting blocked or blacklisted when sending a lot of emails out. So we choose our group. And this is an option here. Once again, if you have multiple email accounts set up in Outlook, now you have the ability to send using whatever account. I only have one, that's why there's only one there. But let's say I had 4, I'd have my 4 email accounts, and I can choose which account I'm sending from. So that's where you have that ability to send from a different account if you have them set up in Outlook. Here's your subject that you want to send out. Okay. And if I want to put in a field here to merge to, let's say I want to put the contact name here, I can do so. There's an insert field option. Bring my field list. I'm going to insert the contact name just to make it a little more personalized. Down below here, I have the option to CCC or BCC somebody. So if I want to carbon copy somebody, now the question that often gets asked when I say that is, what if I'm emailing 100 people? They're going to get 100 emails. Well, that's why we put in this checkbox here, which says CCC addresses on the initial email only. So then all they get is that initial email. They don't get all 100. Okay, they only get that first email. We thought about that. So we're going to hit next. Let's say I want to change the reply to. So instead of going to a black hole, if they reply, I want it to go to my other email. So I check that and put in the email. If I'm sending this like a large group, so what I mentioned, if we send it 100 or 1,000 emails, we might want to split those up into batches. And here's the recommended batch size. So if you're sending 25 or more, we say recommended is 25 emails per batch with a 30-second delay between those batches. That sort of gets you around that issue where if your email provider is going to block you when you send out a blast email at one time. So this allows it to sort of go out in 25 email batches after every 30 seconds. And next. This is where it allows you to add an attachment if you want. So if you want to add a PDF or Word file, whatever you want to add to that email, you can do so right there. And then next is just let you know, hey, this is, we're ready to send out. Click next to begin the emails, or back if you need to change something. Now it's processing those emails. Emails are sent. I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. Let me just show you that email that I received, and there we go. Okay, so merged in there and everything. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. That was the email from before. Right, test. This is because we put the company in there. So there we go. All right, and include, the image comes in, all the data gets merged in that we had, the merge fields, first name, email, company name, and that gets merged in there. Okay. So that's pretty much what we set forth to cover here. So I'd like to open the floor to any questions, either in the chat if we haven't answered any of there's still any unanswered questions there, or are you going to unmute people, Ken, or are you going to do that?
I'm going to keep it through the chat. I don't
Okay.
but I've answered most of the questions as they've come in. I don't really see anything that I haven't answered, but again, it certainly is worth repeating that, because I've had a few people ask this. So who is the ideal candidate for Act for Outlook versus Act for Mail? As Leb said, if you have Act installed on your computer, whether it's a local database or a network share, then go with Act for Outlook. That is, it's cheaper. Has more features. It's faster. It really has. It's designed to work, combining a local install of Outlook with a local install of Act. However, the trend has been over recent years that more and more people are going to all web. And in those cases, there isn't a local installation of Act. So in that case, Act for Mail is the easy choice, because you get all the features that he's demonstrated today, the contact and calendar syncing, the mail merging, all of that, without actually having Act installed. It doesn't mean that Act for Mail will not work with local installations of Act. It just works in kind of a counterintuitive way, because you can have a hosted database with Act Premium Cloud. You're working with a local installation of Act. Act for Mail will record the histories to the hosted database, not the one that's on your computer. So just to avoid that confusion, we always recommend people with local installation of Act go for Act for Outlook. People with web databases go for Act for Mail. Okay, while I was talking here, I had a few more comments.
So one of the questions was, will any of these programs allow us to insert fields from tables? So Act for Mail templates will not, but our mail merge product does, and also custom tables does as well. So custom tables itself allows you to, or tables for Act, I should say, allows you to merge email merges to there as well, and also Notifier does. So it really depends on what you're looking to do with your merging of table fields. There's we have a couple different options, basically, with that one. So
I believe that mail merging through custom tables on the web is still limited to the OAuth issue. So we've got to be careful there. That's a local issue.
Web versions, yeah, correct.
For web versions.
Vicky asked about the mail merge product, and Vicky, I'm not sure if you saw, but I posted in the chat a link to our mail. It's called Mail Merge for Act. So I posted a link to that in the chat window there. So Act for Outlook have most of these features in newer editions, such as selection of contact info, adding attachments. So Act for Outlook doesn't do we don't have the email merge in Act for Outlook, if that's what you're at. I'm not sure who that was that asked that.
Yeah, and the reason for that is simple, is that if you've got Act installed locally, then you're going to use the mail merge utility in there. And mail merge, the add-on can be installed locally as a plugin with Act installed. Okay. Act for Mail eliminates, gets around the issue of not having Act installed and still providing mail merging with templates, which Act Premium Cloud doesn't currently support.
Then Luke asks, is this new version available in Act for Works? I'm not sure what you mean.
Basically Act4work.com. Yes, we did the final build with the last feedback, and we uploaded it today. So Luke is one of our resellers. So for those that aren't as familiar with Luke, if you go to Act4work.com, you can browse and find all our downloads, including Act for Mail. Any other questions? There was, as I said, there was a flurry when I was talking earlier. Okay, you mentioned Rick's question about what's these features? Yeah, so he mentioned mail merge and mail manager. Um, there is a lot of additional features. I don't want this to become a mail merge commercial here, but there's a lot of additional features that you can get with mail merge. But again, that is something that is limited to local installations of Act, so really not for this particular audience. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So if we are out of questions, I want to thank everyone for participating. As a person, as you all registered for this event, expect the recording to be sent out tomorrow so that you can pass it around or review anything you missed. We had a couple of people report that they had to leave early. So thank you very, very much for attending. We will also include, thank you, Ruby, perfect timing. We will also include a purchase link to Act4mail in the email that we send out. And as well, please remember one of the big changes to our Orange Care entitlement, which is our customer support plans, is that you get um, Act4mail free of charge with your subscription. So if you're an Orange Care subscriber, ignore the purchase link and make sure that you submit a request to get your free entitlement. Okay, so with that, thank you all very much and have a great day and look forward to that recording link tomorrow. Thanks, Labs.
Everybody.